The day has come when the doors of one of the most notorious Nazi camps, Buchenwald, will be opened, and the horror for those who first opened the doors of this camp will forever be in touch in their minds. On April 11, 1945, the Allies slowly approach the camp, and as they approach, the smell of horror becomes stronger and stronger. They were afraid of what they would find there, and they were right. The sight was horrible. Piles of corpses of dead people everywhere around the camp, and next to them some living ones who were not so much different from those in the piles. The sight was terrible. The soldiers cried from the horror that the German soldiers had left for them. But that was nothing compared to what they found when they entered the office quarters. Pieces of human skin, human bones displayed as specimen, and head of people who were used for something. There was no end to the horror. The American soldiers quickly ordered the citizens of the nearby town of Weimar to come and see what had been done in their name. Slowly, whispers begin, and one name is constantly mentioned, and that is Ilse Koch, or the Bitch of Buchenwald, the other name that people know her by. She lived in the villa above the camp and was known for cruelty, and she was responsible for everything that happened within the camp. But let's go back a little and see who the bitch from Buchenwald really is. She was born as Margareta Ilse Köhle on September 22, 1906 in Dresden, from working-class parents Max Köhle and Anna Köhle. Her father Max was a master craftsman, and Anna, ordinary housewife who took care of Margareta and her two younger siblings. Margaret completed the entire education in Dresden. After that, she signed for a trade school where she gained secretary skills that will help her later in her life. In 1920, Germany was experiencing one of the most difficult periods, marked by high unemployment, hunger, and a disillusioned people that had been disappointed by the various promises made by different parties. But all that changed, and a new party slowly began to rise, and that was the Nazi Party, which began to give many people hope that better times were coming for the German country. Margaret was fascinated by their ideology and energy. In 1932, she joined the party, where she became a loyal member. After a year, the party came to power. Margaret's life started to change. She met many influential people here, and here she met her future husband, in whom she saw everything that she ever wanted: authority, ambition, and various privileges that came with that. Karl Otto was 9 years older than Margaret and had a very good resume in the party. He was responsible for the concentration camps that were slowly starting to rise in Germany. The fact that their wedding took place in Sachsenhausen camp, where Otto was commander, in a place where horror and terror had no limits, speaks of what terrible people they actually were. Immediately after the wedding, as a wedding gift to Otto, he was given the task to build his own camp in the city of Weimar, with his own villa and place to stay. Here, they will enjoy all the privileges from the Reich and enjoy the splendor and terror that were created there. There, Margaret will give birth to her 3 children, Ortman, Gisela, and the youngest, Gudrun, who will die of pneumonia at only 4 months. With the beginning of the war, the camps begin to fill up, and with that, their lives starting to change drastically. The desire for luxury and wealth began to prevail, and they started to steal the remains of the prisoners: watches, money, and even gold teeth. All of that was for them. Thanks to this, their home was filled with luxury furniture, paintings, and expensive clothes. They even had servants and horses. They were considered one of the most richest family in the Reich. Margaret doesn't hide that, and she often humiliated other officers' wives for how they look and act. She was hated by the officer wives, but not because of the way she acted, but because she was having multiple affairs with their husbands, and she was not trying to hide that. Her madness will culminate in the last years of the war, when her true face would come up to light. She would often ride a horse and beat prisoners with a whip. She would often paradise naked to the camp, and any prisoner who looked at her would be beaten to death or shot. Her perversion and sexuality know no bounds, often walking naked in her home and making other prisoners serve her. And often she brought other male prisoners and made them rape other female prisoners while she was watching. Yet her most morbid occupation was collecting tattoo human skin from other prisoners. If a prisoner had an unusual tattoo, he was taken to the hospital and never come back, and his tattoo was displayed as a sample. However, their crime and greed would not be left by the German authorities, who intervene when they see that the camp treasury was also starting to missing. Karl Otto was immediately arrested by the SS, but his close friend, Heinrich Himmler, immediately intervened, and the investigation ended up there. To keep this under the racks, they sent them to Poland, to the Majdanek camp for some time. Margaret, or Ilse, as we all know, she continued to enjoy her villa in Weimar. However, the investigation was resumed in 1943 by SS judge Konrad Morgan, who collected enough evidence to charge him with these crimes and other crimes committed by this family. The trial resulted with the execution of Karl Otto in 1945. Margaret, or Ilse, spent 16 months in prison before being released and moving with her 2 children to a small apartment in Ludwigsburg, close to her family. After Germany's defeat in World War II, the crimes that took place in this camp slowly began to come to light, and Margaret's name was constantly mentioned over and over the time. She was arrested in 1945 by the American authorities and spent 2 years in prison, where due to the war turmoil, her trial was postponed a few times. At that time, her family tried to make away her custody of her 2 children, which further worsened her mental state. The trial lasted several years, and the entire time she was behind bars. More than 200 witnesses were heard, and more than 100 pages of crime was released. The final verdict was that she would spend the entire life behind bars. Her children spent the entire period haunted by the crimes of their parents, growing up in fear and depression. Her son, unable to bear that period anymore, committed suicide in 1967, and immediately after that, his mother, Margaret, or Ilse, unable to bear that burden anymore, did the same thing at the age of 60. Thank you, my friends. Stories from the Frontier here. See you in the next one.